You had to set boundaries with someone? Maybe, just maybe, you've been in a situation where you needed to set boundaries with someone, but you happen to be in a very high stakes, high pressure type of situation, and you just simply didn't know what to do. In this video, I'm going to share with you some insights, some strategies that will help you when you need to communicate your boundaries under pressure as a leader. Now, if you are new to me, welcome. And if you are one of my amazing subscribers, welcome back, friends. I'm here to help you learn how to communicate more confidently and concisely when you are in those very high stakes, high pressure situations. If you want to be that leader that stands out from everybody else because you are the one that can communicate calmly under pressure and be that person that can defend themselves when they are challenged, this is the best channel for you to subscribe to on YouTube. This channel specifically is for anyone trying to be in a leadership position. However, I do spend a lot of time specializing in working with women that are in leadership roles in my executive coaching and consultation practice. However, if you are outside of that audience, you're a man in leadership or someone thinking about leadership, I guarantee you that the information I'm sharing with you, some of it is very universal. Of course, some of it's going to be specific to the women in leadership, but you're going to gain a lot of information out of this channel. Now, let's talk about what happens when you're trying to communicate more, I would say, in a calm way when the stakes are high and you need to set those boundaries. Well, the first thing that I want you to do, this is number one, establish those boundaries first. Now, when you are in those very high stakes, high pressure situations, it just depends on what's going on. I'm going to focus a bit more with this video on the time boundary. So let's say you need to leave at a certain time or you have some other project you have to work on. We'll focus on that today because I was asked this question. But you want to have your boundary set up first. If you have a specific time that you need to leave because you have another task you have to complete or you have to go pick up loved ones or kids or whatever the case may be, then you have to set those boundaries in advance. If you don't set those boundaries in advance, it makes it very, very difficult for you to be able to communicate them when you are under pressure. Let me give you an example. I had a conversation with someone, and this individual specifically asked me, Dr. Jacinta, I'm really struggling with setting boundaries at work. And I have to leave work at a certain time, but every day, what happens is there's some other meeting that's added to my schedule, or some event happens, and I'm never able to leave on time. And I'm really struggling with it. How should I approach this so I can still be polite, but not be too aggressive? Now, before I go into what I shared with this person, I want to say hello to everyone who have joined today. If you have ever struggled with learning how to navigate, communicate yourself and your boundaries as a leader, this is your chance to ask me anything for the next 15 minutes or so. Let me know what part of the big, beautiful world you all are joining from today and what questions you have about setting boundaries. Let's talk about it here. We have Jace Shoots. Hello, Jace. Hope you're doing well. And we have Benigno Kennel. Go away. Well, Benigno Kennel, obviously, this is the channel for you. So you can go troll another channel here on YouTube, but not this one. Now, as I mentioned, what did I tell this person when they're struggling with their boundaries? And I want to know from you watching, have you ever struggled with how to say? How do you say those boundaries? You know you have them in your mind, right? You know what you want, you know what you want to say, but when you actually say it, there's that hesitation, right? There's that pause where you just think, I don't want to say it. Let's talk about it today. Let me know how I can help you. Now, as I mentioned, for those of you who just joined, I had someone ask me, tell me that they've been leaving work late, they can't leave on time, they got some other commitments outside of work, and they need to communicate those boundaries. How do they do it in those pressure situations? The first strategy I share with you is you have to be able to set those boundaries ahead of time. That is the biggest amount. You have to set your boundaries ahead of time. If you don't set your boundaries ahead of time, when those high stakes or those very pressure situations come up, it's going to be very difficult for you to set those boundaries then. I want to say hello to Dixie Boy. Hope you're doing well. Now, what is the next step I told this person to do? We talked about setting the boundaries in advance. So what you want to do is take some time and think about your boundaries. Now, if you have ever struggled with setting boundaries as a woman in leadership or as a man in leadership, there is a whole month-long video series of boundaries for December of 2025 on my channel. You're welcome to take a look at that. We talk about a lot of different boundaries there to help you start to gain some form of a foundation to help you set those boundaries. So think about what boundaries specifically you need to set. Do you need to leave at a certain time? Do you need to stop a project at a certain time? Do you need to be in your vehicle at a certain time? What is it specifically? Once you have that figured out, now you need to communicate it. Now, as I mentioned, if you wait to communicate this boundary when you are in that pressure situation, when you are, let's say, the clock is ticking, right? That is the wrong time for you to set this boundary. The best time for you to set this type of boundary is before it happens, as I mentioned a moment ago. Once you have determined this is the boundary I need to leave at this time, then you need to communicate that boundary. What can you do? Whoever it is that needs to know, whether it's a team member, whether it's a coworker, it's a business associate, perhaps it is a supervisor or your boss, your manager, whoever, they need to know you need to leave at a certain time. Now, the balance to that is that you don't necessarily need to go into a lot of detail in terms of why. Let me explain to you. When you are in a working situation, unless you work for amazing leaders, like I was an amazing leader, I will admit I was very good. But a lot of times when you tell people things that are personal about yourself, or maybe you need to leave at a certain time and you go into a bit too much detail into it, some people will take that and use it as leverage against you, which is the reason why I say that you don't necessarily need to tell all of your business in terms of specifically why do you need this boundary. I have done this. I have said this previously when I was a W 2. I have said I have some other commitments. I have gone on some family commitments. If you want to easy out where no one's going to question you, you can easily say, I have some family commitments I need to take care of, and I have to leave the office at this time. Easy. I didn't go into detail. I didn't say what the commitments were. I kept it very vague. If you have a boss or a manager that tries to like push you a little bit and says, "Oh, what's going on with your family?" What do you do? What do you do? Do you tell them what's going on with your family? Of course not. You don't need to tell them that unless it's something urgent and you feel like you need to. But I would say everything is fine. It's just some things that we're navigating and leave it as that. The more vague you are when it comes to your personal business at work, the more it will save you as an employee or as a business associate, depending on the nature of your relationship with whoever it is you're working with. So, as I mentioned, knowing your boundaries, knowing exactly what those boundaries are, taking a moment to have that conversation. This is how you communicate it. You tell the person or the individual, I have to leave at a certain time, or I need to finish this project at a certain time. I have some family commitments that I need to take care of. Now, the difference between what I just said compared to being completely vague, if you said, by the way, manager, boss, supervisor, whoever, I have to leave at 5 o'clock, and that's it, they somewhat will feel a bit aggravated because they don't know why. They don't know why you have to leave, which is the reason why I would specifically say I have family commitments because that's basically letting them know, by the way, I'm not being rude about it. I do have family commitments and I'm letting you know just a little bit enough to just satisfy you in terms of whatever questions that you may have as to why I need to leave at a certain time. I have used this many times throughout the years, and it will help you when you're in those very challenging situations where you may need to set boundaries in your leadership role. Now, I mentioned to you communicating those boundaries is very important, and you have to do this type of communication before you go into that under pressure situation where your boundaries are being challenged. Now, what do you do? What do you do? What do you say? How do you say it when you're in a situation where your boundaries are being crossed and you are under pressure. What do you do? Let me know in the comments below. What are some things that you think that you would do if your boundaries were being crossed when you were under pressure? What would you say? How would you say it? When would you say it? Etc. Now, I'll give you an example of what you can do. One, I'm focusing in on the time boundary specifically for today. So if you want me to go into other boundaries, I'd be happy to. If you have not watched my series on boundaries, we talked about the time boundary, the money boundary, the energy boundary, the personal boundary, and the professional boundary. So there's 5 boundaries I talked about in a lot of detail. So definitely take a look at my live videos and watch those. Now, I'm focusing on the time boundary because this is what specifically this individual asked me about. What do you do? How do you communicate when you are under pressure and you have the time boundary? What do you do? Well, the first thing you want to do is be very, very, very observant of what is going on with your schedule. Now, as I mentioned, you have to communicate this boundary ahead of time. If you do not communicate ahead of time and you just happen to be in the moment under pressure and say, I got to leave here at 5 o'clock, I got to leave here at 5 o'clock, everybody's going to look at you and think, what's going on with this person? Like, what changed? That's why you communicate it in advance. Now, if you're under pressure and you're trying to figure it out, I want to give you some insight in terms of what specifically you will be able to do. Before I do that, let me see what's going on in the chat. We have Pankaj Singh. Welcome, friend. Good to see you. How you doing today? Pankaj says, "Good morning, doctor. Good morning to you. It's evening time here in the U.S., but you, I believe, are many hours ahead of us." Now, as I mentioned, okay, we started off with our scenario that happened. How are we going to communicate it now when we're under pressure? Be very observant of your schedule. If you know that you need to leave your place of business or etc. by 5 o'clock, because if you don't leave by 5 o'clock, you have other things going on, or if you have to leave at 4:30 or 3:30, whatever time frame it is that you have, then you will want to really be very, 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 very mindful of what's going on with the schedule. Specifically, whatever accommodations or modifications you need to make at the end of the day, make them. So, for instance, if you are at the end of the day and you know that you don't want to have a meeting that talks specifically about maybe a very complex topic that could go a bit longer than normal, then you absolutely want to make sure you don't schedule meetings like that at the end of the day. So, be in control of your schedule at your employment or in your business as much as you possibly can, because it will help you to alleviate the pressure you may feel when you become or you find yourself in that very under pressure situation. So truly observe your schedule, make modifications of your schedule as needed. Now, I will share with you your boundaries are going to be tested. Somebody's going to test your boundaries even though they know you're supposed to leave. They will. They will. Now, what happens when you do that? As I mentioned, modify the schedule as needed and observe it very carefully. If you start to notice that if you're supposed to leave at 5 o'clock and at 3 o'clock or 3:30, you have some type of meeting that was just thrown on your schedule. How many of you had meetings thrown on your schedule out of nowhere? All of us have as leaders. Now, if you see that there's a meeting that's on there, the best thing, and it could be a meeting, it could be a procedure, it could be a shift change. It could be a lot of things. Whatever it is, before you get started, you let that person know, I have to leave here at this time because I have family commitments. And that should set the tone for everybody else. Therefore, as the meeting goes on, or your shift change goes on, or your procedure goes on, whatever it is that you're dealing with specifically, as it goes on, you make sure that you in your mind have planned out, okay, I need to leave at a specific specified time to get out of here when I need to leave here. Now, when you are ready to leave, you just excuse yourself in a polite way. Excuse me, everyone. I have to go. I'm looking forward to seeing the recap of the meeting, or I'm looking forward to having a further discussion. I hope you all have a great day. And get your purse, get your bag, and then just start walking out the door. That is the best way for you to be able to communicate your boundaries under pressure. Now, what happens a lot of times, and the mistake that I do not want you all to make, is that people will do the following. I share this with you because I've done this before, and this is a mistake I don't want you to make. People will do some of the things I mentioned. So they'll take some time and set their boundaries ahead of time. They'll think about what boundaries they need to set. They'll identify what time they need to leave. They do all of the prep work beforehand, all of it. But when it comes down to being under pressure, they struggle and they just cannot find the words to say, I have to go. They just sit there and kind of wait and kind of wait, and they look at their clock and they say, "Oh, I know I'm supposed to get out of here. I don't know what to do." And they just stay frozen. And then what happens is they stay frozen, the clock is ticking, and then they stay late. And this is where people become very stressed in their different positions and roles because they have not felt empowered enough to communicate their boundaries. And I personally have done this, which is the reason why I share it with you. I do not want you to make that mistake. And if this is something that you are struggling with this, and you know that you go into meetings, you have conversations, and you know you need to speak up, but you're not quite exactly sure how to say it, or there's something intuitively that just prevents you from doing it, then you absolutely want to reach out to me. I have a service that will completely change your life, that will empower you, especially as a woman in leadership, to be able to communicate in those very high stakes, high pressure situations. Many people think that people are just born with being able to communicate in very challenging situations. I want to let you know that that is completely not true. We are trained how to do that. And if someone could fast forward your life and give you the insight you need that will help you to think on your feet, that will help you to defend yourself when something comes up as a challenge, that will help you to be able to speak when maybe in the past you would have just simply just kept silent, how much would your life change? Would you be able to negotiate that salary that you're looking for? Would you be able to finally feel as if you're able to have a voice in your role or in your businesses? Would you be able to be that person that is seen as the leader, as the person who is a thought leader in their particular role or the organization or etc.? Would it change your life? It would. And if you need some support, feel free to reach out to me for my service. It's called the High Stakes Communication Intensive. It will completely change your life. I will make sure that you are in a better place, if so that when you're challenged and you have those situations where you're struggling with it, then you know exactly what to say and you feel a bit more empowered to do that. If it sounds like something you're interested in, then you absolutely want to reach out to me either on Instagram, LinkedIn, leave a comment on YouTube, or go to exciteexcellence.org, and you're welcome to contact me and ask me any questions that you may have. So I've shared with you several things as it relates to setting your boundaries in terms of communicating them. And for those of you just joining, welcome, welcome. We have talked about the time boundary a bit more specifically in this video, but the key to setting boundaries and how you communicate them is one, you want to make sure you set them, you determine what boundaries do you need. Two, you need to articulate those boundaries and communicate them to whoever needs to know it. And then three, when you are under pressure, you have to be able to speak your boundary and set that tone. And as I mentioned, I gave an example. I gave an example of specifically what you could say when you need to let them know that you have a time boundary, you have to leave at a certain time. And I've also told you what to do as a strategy if you see the schedule's looking a little bit longer at the end of the day, or it is filled with meetings or discussions or procedures or etc. that are going to cause you to be behind. Let the individuals know at the very beginning. By the way, have to leave at a certain specific time, and set that tone at the beginning so people say, "Oh, okay, okay, we understand." So when you walk out the door and you say, "Okay, everyone, I hope you have a great day. I have to leave," then people say, "Oh, okay, no problem. Then we know what's going on." Now, I want to say one more thing to you before we leave in terms of how you communicate that boundary, but I want to say hello to those in the chat. We have Jonathan. Jonathan, I want to say Friere, I wanna say maybe. I hope I said it correctly. Hello, Jonathan. How you doing today? Jonathan says, "Hello, guys." And we have Marion Mari. Hello, welcome, welcome. Says, "Hello, darling. Hope you all are doing well today." Now, the last thing you wanna do when you're trying to set those boundaries and talk about those boundaries, you will need to have a more affirmative type of tone of voice. Now, specifically, in order to know what is your affirmative type of tone of voice, you have to know your baseline. I talk about this a lot on my channel. And if you are at that point where you are very much trying to advance how you're communicating and be at a higher level than your peers, you definitely want to subscribe to the channel. I talk about your baseline a lot. Now, the baseline specifically is how do you communicate in a day to day basis all the time? When you are trying to influence your audience or modify your tone of voice, whether you're going to bring your voice up or down or keep it at baseline, when you're trying to communicate boundaries, you have to sound like you know that I have the winning lottery tickets and these are what the tickets are. It needs to sound so confident that you automatically know this is exactly what I have going on. I have to leave at this time. Be more affirmative in terms of how you speak. Now, if you're a woman in leadership and you need some support with this, contact me for a high stakes communication intensive and I'll help you with that. All right, Jonathan says you are beautiful. Thank you, Jonathan. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Now, I shared with you a couple strategies to keep in mind as it relates to setting boundaries, but also how to communicate those boundaries. Now, for those of you watching, I did an entire month-long series in December of 2025 about boundaries. You will learn a lot there. I talked about the time boundary, the money boundary, the energy boundary, the personal boundary, and the professional boundary. Those are a lot of boundaries to work on, but I talk about those in detail. If you like this information, you're welcome to subscribe to the channel. If you want me to go into more detail in terms of communicating those boundaries, let me know in the comments below because I'll be more than happy to give you some insight to help you be able to set those boundaries. Not only set them, but communicate them in a way to where you feel confident. Because my mission for you here on this earth is to help you be able to communicate more confidently and concisely under pressure. We have John Baker says, hello. John Baker says, wow, you're so pretty. Well, thank you, John. I appreciate that. So let me know how I can support you all on your journey. I go live here consistently for those of you who are new to the channel and maybe some of my subscribers. Welcome back. I go live consistently in the morning and in the evenings on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays. Wednesday mornings, sometimes I'm able to go live, but Wednesday evenings I will be live. So I go pretty live consistently here so much that I'm on YouTube's live streamer research panel because I go so live so much. So this is the only channel on YouTube. I say that confidently. This is the only channel on YouTube that will help you learn those very high stakes, high pressured communication skills in a real setting, in a live setting that's not overly polished, highly academic, or heavily edited. I don't talk about theories and I don't talk about methods or specific hypotheses. I'm sharing with you real things that actually happen in the wonderful world of leadership. I will see you all in the next video. Let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you soon.